structure and pricing. Charging what your services are worth. By the end of this lesson, you should be able to discuss the various types of compensation, explain the features of each form of compensation, analyze the impact of industry changes on compensation, and understand how value influences price. Now, in this infographic, it shows you in 2011 that fee and commission was really the primary way people earned money. Then fee only, commission only, salary and fee, all of those were much smaller. And as you've seen in other lessons, more and more people are looking for compensation in other ways, and value has become more and more important in leveling the playing field. Now, the types of compensation models primarily that advisors are choosing between today are commission or combined with some fees for service, assets under management, a retainer or a flat fee, or an hourly fee. Now, the industry is shifting to fees based on assets under management because consumers only want to pay for services they need, and there's a variety of services that they can offer beyond investments with a flat fee of some sort, and so they might offer insurance products for commission, and so they'll identify themselves as fee-based. But more and more clients are seeing a flat amount charged, and they want the transparency that the commission products didn't offer them in the past. So when you have an asset under management agreement with a client, you're not getting compensated to sell a particular product or service. It's just a percentage of the assets in total, or a cost of the advice. The clients will have to make new investments or make changes if they want to continue to grow or be viable for those services, because if you're charging a fee and you're not actively managing their portfolio, that's something that compliance will want to know why. Clients want to make sure that they're getting paid for service is how this compensation program works, and that they're not paying for something that they don't need or don't use. Now, when you hear an industry average of a 1% fee, it's not really just 1%. There's some other things that are also rolled up into what the client is actually charged. Now, that 1% advisory fee could be split between the advisor and their firm. So that could be a 50-50 split. So the advisor may not take home that entire 1%. Now, there is an underlying charge for that the client is also charged for the products or the platform, if there is a platform manager, or there are fees for a particular product that they've purchased as part of their fee that they're charged. Clients are focused on ETFs because of the low cost. Now, there may be higher ticket charges involved with those, but clients are starting to gravitate and ask for those because they don't see a lot of those extra charges that way. Mutual funds do have not only the platform fee, but the 12b-1 fees. Now, some of those are disappearing in retirement accounts thanks to the Department of Labor regulations, but right now there are still funds out there that do charge those. And then a lot of advisors are outsourcing the management of their portfolios to a third-party manager. And again, a lot of this has to do with the compliance that the Department of Labor is asking for, the know your client information, the documentation, and the consistent method of choosing the portfolio. And they have that done for you. And so there may be charges for that as well. Now, for the 1% too, there's the investment advice, and then there's also that levelized wrap fee for the products that we talked about. And the client, when the clients question price, it could be because they're aware of the technology out there that offer them solutions without an advisor involved that are less costly for them. They see these no-load funds that are out there and the ETFs, as we mentioned. And so advisors must need to do more than just invest money in order to show their value. Now there's retainers, and a lot of firms have gone to that. It's a flat amount. I'll manage your portfolio for this amount, and the client knows exactly what it's going to cost them. It's not impacted by the growth or decline of the underlying portfolio that the advisor is managing, or it's a flat fee for advice. And that focuses more on planning and less on investment performance. It's particularly good for smaller accounts because trying to charge them a percentage on a very small account is costly to them. And with the Department of Labor oversight and the robo platforms that are available, the advisors are looking to do the retainer because then all clients are being charged a fair and equitable amount, and it's not product driven. Now, there are still some commission-based products out there. These particular advisors that are compensated by commission, they're just looking at investment strategies. They buy and sell securities, insurance products. They're paid by the companies that sell the investments if you're doing the insurance products rather than directly by the clients. But clients suspect when you're getting compensated to sell a particular product or service that maybe you're choosing it because of the way that you're compensated. The best way that advisors are choosing to be compensated is to compete on something other than price. Price, there's always going to be somebody that can charge less. You want to become a subject matter expert. They'll pay a premium to get that advice from you. They already pay a premium for things that they value. Think about the Apple Watch or the next phone that comes out and how many people are willing to spend extra for that because they perceive it to be a value that they want. They want content, they want wisdom, knowledge, the way you deliver the information. So don't compete on price. You want to make sure more than ever to focus on the value that you provide. And an interesting study and a misconception is that a lot of advisors think that the fiduciary rule is going to require you to charge less, and that's not true. They do not require the advisor to be the lowest cost. What they do want is that you're charging fees that are average in the marketplace for similar services. So unless you can really document why you're charging more than another advisor based on your expertise or the value that you're providing or the extra things you deliver, then that's where the DOL is going to think that you're maybe charging more. But they're not requiring you to be the most inexpensive at all. Now, again, competing on value, because clients should compare the value of what you're offering, not just the price. and not just the cost, but the cost for what you get. So if you compete on price, there's always someone who's going to charge less than you do. So be confident in your value. It's more difficult to raise your fees. So if you have a client that you've been charging 1% and you realize that you're charging too little in order to give them the service that you've promised them, it's really hard to have a conversation with them to say, I've decided I need to charge you more. And a recent study by Bob Veris found that experienced advisors do charge more than advisors in their first few years of practice. And I think that's because you feel a little bit like an imposter, that you're not worth as much as somebody who's done this a while. And based on your education and all of the things that you know how to do that a lot of people don't know, you have to charge what you're worth. XY Planning Network found that 100% of those surveyed raised their fees after 3 years, so avoid that difficult conversation. Now, setting your fees or your minimum account size, you really need to analyze your practice. You need to figure out what you're charging the client for. And so if you have to pay rent and you have to pay technology and you have to pay your staff, and you figure how much that all costs, and you divide that by the number of clients you're servicing and the number of advisors, you're going to get an idea of what you're bringing in and what the cost per advisor is, and you've got to figure that you've got some profit in there. But once you come up with that number, that's the value of your client-facing hours. Yeah, and particularly if you are a solo practitioner, you need to think about how much of your time is client-facing. But once you do those calculations, you're going to see what you have to make per client in order to keep the lights on and keep your practice running. And so you may want to set an account minimum based on what you find. So if you're doing 1% of 250,000, then that's going to be $2,500 if that's what you think you're going to charge. But maybe that's not enough for all of the clients that you have to keep up with the salary that your partner needs to make, or you need to hire another administrative staff person. So maybe your account minimum's $500,000 in order to be able to staff your offices. So do the math, make sure that you are charging the right amount for the clients that you bring in, or maybe it's your retainer that you decide to do instead of the assets under management, but you say my minimum retainer is $5,000 or whatever it might be. The goal is to make sure that you can maintain your office in order to give them the service that they want. So in summary, you've learned about the different ways that advisors are compensated, the importance of demonstrating your value, and the necessity of understanding your expenses in setting your fees or client minimums.